Man on man in Leviticus. What does it really mean when you interpret it? Religious people do not interpret that. They just think it means no gay sex. If you remember, within, probably the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years perhaps, I recall the Pope trying to ease everybody up with respect to the management of gay people. And there was a lot of Christian lashback on that, saying that he's not following the Bible and all of that. Well, I'm going to tell you something. The Pope knows something that is not in general population. And I think I know what that is, and I want to talk about that here. Why he said that, and why we can look through Leviticus to find a structure that is in there. And by that structure, I'll show as we get into the video. It's a big setup. When you interpret this, there's a lot that has to be done, and we have to put ourselves in their world. They had these memorized. We do not. I'll show you why that is important. I'm going to start this video by describing something that's a little bit different. We have to work through a mental process as to how to understand that verse. Okay, when I say that it's not plain language, there's a certain technique to extract what the teaching is. And what I'm going to do is we're going to start with teaching that technique. And then when we get into that verse, we'll know what to do with it. My name is Dan Paulson. Let's get started. If you go to Genesis, there's some odd numbering in there. You go and find videos all over the place as to how people are trying to explain why someone lived 900 and some years, 800 and some years, 700 and some years, 600 and some years. I want to say that through analysis, I have found what I call a 3-7 grid. On day 7, creation was said 3 times. Right there, Adam and Eve, naked, unashamed, in the Garden of Eden, day 7, said 3 times. All of those are a starting point. Now, I don't want to get into that too deeply here because it'll just go off the rails. It's a huge thing that's going on. I'll post a link to a video that I made already on the 800 and 900 and how they're collecting those analogs. And what they're doing is there's a repeating pattern in the background. There's something that is sequencing. We should see it in the numbers because they repeat so frequently. And this is the pool of numbers that they're gathering. We can actually see where those numbers come from and how they're being used. They're being used in Leviticus as well. However, how does that impact the interpretation of man on man? Significantly so. There's 2 ways of reading spiritual material. There's a way to read it plain language or interpret it looking outward into the physical world, or you make it about yourself, knowing that every word they're using is not the right word. All right, what is nested in there is a very difficult to accomplish self-healing path where we can resolve issues. There's a way to resolve our past issues and to feel better. People don't want to do that. They don't want to face the past. They don't want to face those things. So how do you get that out in public? All right, in a simplest form, what I would do is something like this. If I was holding on to something from my past, I got hurt and I'm angry over that and it continues to bother me. I hate. I'm living my whole life through this cyclical thing. And at some point you go, how do I extract myself from this? Because there is a way to get away from it. And that's what this path is about, how to escape from those things. But if I wanted to pass it around, I might say something like, as long as you continue to hate who did that to you or feel shame over that, you're going to continue to have problems with it. You're going to continue to have the shame. You're going to continue to have the hate. You're going to continue to cycle around that, which you're mentally grasping. And you tell people to spread that around and they go, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. So instead you put it in a secret wording system that's pretty simple. I would say maybe an anchored ship cannot sail. But I know then that what I'm doing is putting something out there that people go, that's benign, or it doesn't mean anything. Yeah, I'll pass that around. Of course, it's a silly thing. But the person that knows, okay, I am the ship. The ship is it's an analogous representation of me. And as long as the ship is anchored, it can't sail free. That's telling me as long as I'm hanging on to something up here, I can't get free of it. So it gets very deep, though. It gets bigger and bigger than that. That's the simplest of what they're doing as far as this. It works both ways, doesn't it? An anchored ship will not sail. But if you interpret it, it is also about me hanging on to something. The man on man is the same thing. It means something in the physical world, but it means something different when you interpret it and call those analogous terms instead of physical man on man. What then could it be? If you follow my work, you'll know that what they're doing in Jewish material when they make the stories is that they're using a hierarchy in the stories, and they're using a hierarchy in the mind. It works. It's perfect in the culture. You've got a higher awareness, you've got a consciousness, and you've got a subconscious, which is subservient to the conscious. So you write the story, we've got a God, we've got a man, and we've got a female that is subservient. This is the chain of command. That's the chain of command up here. It's the chain of command in the story. That's exactly how they work. So man on man is what? Every teaching tells us to not name things, to not judge things, that whatever we judge, whatever we live through is going to be something that becomes a part of us. The idea is you're supposed to live life without attaching emotionally to all those experiences, because the more you attach to those emotional experiences, the more you live through those emotional experiences. That becomes what Jesus is going to call later the mote in your eye. It's a bundle of memories. It's a mass that needs to be cleaned out that prevents us from seeing life correctly. Third eye in some teachings. What it is we have two eyes up here, but they don't tell us if things are good or bad. We can smell, we can taste. There's a few senses that we get in, and those senses go to some place in our brain where we perceive our environment. That's the third eye right there. And whatever we hold in our memories clouds the judgment that we're seeing in life. We're seeing life through our own fear and pain. And that's why when people act out like that, you know where they're coming from. Why don't you, instead of hurting other people, resolve your past? I have been very criticized for saying that in the past. All right, what I'm going to suggest is something that people don't do. I'm going to bring in material from everything is okay to me. Nothing is off limits. You can see something more when you read more. The more you educate yourself, the more you will see certain things. So the more you limit yourself, just think of it. All right, I didn't limit myself. I'm going to suggest something that is in the Tao Te Ching. This is the same teaching exactly right here, but it will not sound the same. Let's talk through this one, and we'll kind of work around a few. I'll do one from the Buddha next, and then we'll go back to Moses and Leviticus and see how that one works. Neither one of these two are using the mental hierarchy. The Jewish one is, but they're all the same teaching. You have to learn how to put them up here. Verse right here in the first page, there's a few things being said, but this is the one right here we're looking for. Naming is the origin of all particular things. That is up here. I come on board in my life experiences, naming them, qualifying them. I remember it, and I feel this way about it. I've just named it. I've created something that is a part of me now. Naming is the origin of all particular things. That's about me, about my life. This is what the guru told me. I said, what happened to me? I have to figure this out. Oh, everything that I see. How I named my experiences is how I came about. Okay, I get it. Buddha's going to, right in the very first one, it's a lot more plain language. It's in the twin verses. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. We are in this verse. We are mental, and we are the ox that draws the carriage through life. That represents us. And pain follows like a wheel, cycles of pain coming around. You see how they're hiding it in there. There's a cycle of pain that's coming around as a result of having had something. You have to understand it is a mental, spiritual thing. You have to turn it inward. If you don't do that, you go, you know what? I don't speak or act with evil thoughts. I mean, I had a bunch of stuff happen in the past that keeps bugging me, but I don't live like that. I don't know why things keep going bad. It's because you have to go. That's it right there. It's the stuff that is unresolved. It's not an evil thought. It is something that is evil to your life. I'll jump back to Lao Tzu for a second and show how he does it. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. There's the cycles of pain right there. Caught in desire, caught up here, caught in hanging on to something, you see only the cyclical return of it. You see that? Okay, what's man on man? We go to the mental hierarchy. This is conscious on conscious. All right, so everybody should know that there's pretty much this prevalent teaching, at least if you're a Christian and you're familiar with the Bible, this idea from Jesus, judge not lest you be judged, that as soon as we start judging life, we begin living through those judgments. We live through the quality of those judgments. We're going to anyway. What's the quality of them? If your life is good, you're not going to stop and examine that. But if your life is bad, this is what you do. We all come from places where many of us where it's really hurt, and you're looking for a way to heal. This is a way to do that if you can access the inner template. The outer carrier is still there, but there's something in here that is more personal and very individual at a deep level. Now, I'm not going to go pull up a lot of verses. I'll just talk in general terms. People at this level, you should have some familiarity with the Bible or be able to go find this and verify it. So there's things that are existing in the Leviticus and Deuteronomy, the laws being laid out. There's a variety of things, such as in one case, if it's confirmed that on your wedding night, your wife was not a virgin, you take her to her father's doorstep and stone her to death. The other side of that is that if she was proven to be a virgin, then the man is required to remain married to her. So he doesn't like her, made false accusation. You're wrong. You have to stay married to her. What a life. There is an admonition that people who are ill or crippled were not allowed to approach the altar and leave gifts. So if you're looking at these and trying to treat them all literally, you would have to ask yourself, are you really doing all of them? Or are we picking and choosing a couple of them and don't even know what the other ones are, which I find typically is the case. When I'm not a Christian, I'm an independent researcher. But what I come up with is tangible. I don't make you go get a foil hat. We can go look at things. We can interpret things. People may not agree with them, but you can always, if you learn to read them in a certain way, you can see that there is something there that is in common between them. The entire man-on-man thing there, then that's really a consciousness having a judging experience. You have now judged that in life. This is going to be a repeating thing, but it's going to be held in so many different analogous terms. And in this case, the analogous terms are also being put out there to direct the population at that time. So they don't want people doing that. This happens early in the Bible, right? This is actually the reason we leave the Garden of Eden, this very thing right here, the man-on-man or the situation. We have to unlock these terms. What is first sin? Eve consumed of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What that means is that your inner self now is consuming life experiences and knows the difference between what is good and bad. We didn't as children. Now we do. Oh, life's not going to be okay. We've lost our connection to that Garden of Eden, and we move on. That's what first sin really is. It's our first accumulation of something right there. That is where it starts. That's how we live. So that's why it's difficult to see the repeats in the material. But all of those right there, the first sin, the consuming of the knowledge of good and evil, the caught in desire, the wheel will follow you, the man on man, every one of them would be like Jesus saying, judge not, because we're going to live through those experiences. But there's a number of things in there. What about the crippled? It looks like they've got, we got people going to act out. We'll just get the minorities. We'll get the gay guys and the people with leprosy, and the women that are, not virgins. We'll have at them all you want to. It's kind of like, wow, that's kind of a weird thing. And if everybody is made, the idea that people choose to be gay is just insane. At what point in time did you choose your sexual orientation? I never did. I'm not gay. I'm completely heterosexual, but I don't have any issues with people that are gay. I have issues with people that are in your face with all kinds of things, but that's doesn't matter whether, get a room, heterosexual or not. That's a non-issue for me. People should just go live their lives, and things that are private are private. I don't think that if you're thinking that God created everything, then you must think that God created people that are gay. And if you think people are choosing to sin, then that's just, to me, it's so half-baked to say that when you can't even experience what the other person is experiencing. I can't even imagine having an attraction like that. So somebody that does would probably be looking at me and just, well, you got your attraction. We're all different. We're born a little bit different. But let's go ahead and pick on them. I don't think that was, and it's also at a time, there's a couple of pioneer cemeteries around here. This is kind of mind-boggling. I don't remember the dates, early 1900s. Family, Johnson, Smith, something like that, a common name. There's a lineup of headstones. 1900, Johnson baby. 1901, Johnson baby. 1903, Johnson baby. 1904 to 1904 January to 1904 February. Eli Johnson. It's hard to imagine because our infant mortality rate has changed so much, but you can almost look at this and go, these guys aren't even naming their children. They're just having kids knowing that hopefully one will make it. And if they do, we name them. And they live for a few months and we bury them. They're just lined up like that. And you're like, man, what a life. You know, it would be so important early on for the population. Life is hard. Kids don't make it. Well, it's tough. Yeah, we live in our modern day biases. I mean, even today, when you see the anti-abortion, I step back and look at that. It's like one core of people. It's like a certain kind of evolved brain type, number one, that wants children born, and then really doesn't care what happens to them afterwards. They just want them born. However, if they're homeless, get them out of here. If they're criminals, drugs, all that, they're continually feeding that system without even understanding what's going on. Something's really broken society. I don't think abortion is something you should just go do, but it should not be off the table. There needs to be some better understanding of what's going on and managing it in a way that isn't so hurtful to people. It's just simpler, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at a couple of things in Leviticus. Remember my numbers here? I showed those in the beginning. I've got the video link below to them, but basically here I'm just going to take a look at, just do a refresh here. I'm going to be just looking at these bigger ones up here. 3, 5, 7, 10, 12, 15, 17, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. You should recognize all of those from Genesis. There's our 800 and our 900. They were both said 7 times. Okay. If we moved up to another step, like from 3 to 4 is evil, 7 to 8 is evil, 10 to, and so on. I think there's a point where that stops. I'm not sure where that is. I don't think I quite have a handle on it completely. I'm still analyzing it. But okay, let's look at Leviticus. All right, I've got the Authorized King James Version up here. I've done a little bit of modifying of it, just getting out of some of the Old English and a few other grammatical things, but it's all verbally intact. I want these intact. That's why I go to the King James Version for this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to search for words that are going to be meaningful to me. And I'm going to say right here, I'm going to say tabernacle. Actually, I'm going to like this whole term, tabernacle of the congregation. Let's go see how many times that appears. $43 times. Okay, now if we go over here to our numbers, what we see a number 40, and we see a 3 from the 3-7 day. So in cases like this, they're going to vary things up and show you what is in there. They're going to replicate these very, very, let me just say religiously. Okay, what is a burnt offering? A burnt offering sounds like a good thing, doesn't it? Let's take a look and see how many times it shows up. Burnt offering, 53. We see a 50 and a 3. So we see the combination again. This is a large document. They're repeating some words a lot of times, an inordinate amount of times. That's what gets your attention. Sometimes you just go, wow, why do they keep repeating that over and over and over? And that's what they're doing. They said it this many times. Count them. What else do we have in here? How about, boy, Aaron, I'm scared to look for that one. That'll be a huge number. Aaron, no, that's fine. 80 times. Okay. So I've kind of decoded how to interpret these, so I kind of have a good handle on what to look for now. And I'm going to see something down here that I know spiritually I need to eat something that is good, so I'm going to find something here. And I find something that it's something made of fine flour. So if I say fine flour, should be good. 12 times. Yep, it's on our list. It tells us it's a good thing, doesn't it? Savor. 17 times. We gathered that in Genesis. Sarai's name was repeated 17 times in Genesis. Oh, one of my early Jewish favorites. You always have to check for nakedness. What was Noah after the flood? Who was naked before them? Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Naked's a good thing. Naked is when you're not covered. Naked is 32 times here. We see a 30 and a 2. All right, daughter. Always an important one. 23. Okay, there we have it. 20 and 3 times. Daughter's a good thing. In the spiritual world, what is that? Daughter represents pure offspring of us, our pure qualities. What happened just before the flood? The sons of God came down and went into the daughters of men, the fair daughters, and created the giants on the earth that were on the earth then and are today. Yeah, that's our life. Altar, 87 times. 80 and 7. Watch how intense this is. I read through here and priest just jumps out. Too many results to show, but look, 195. What do we have? We have a 100, and we have a 90, and we have a 5. Seriously? Yeah, this keeps happening. This has some of those example verses about not mixing wool and linen garments. So, you know what? Let's take a look and see which one is a good garment and which one is a bad garment. That's good. We're not supposed to blend. There's a good and there's a bad. There's a good and there's a bad. One of these is going to be good. One of these is going to be bad. This is how we dial this in. Wool. Woolen. 5 times. Woolen is on the list of good, the green list. Woolen is a good garment. What about linen? 13, which is what? 1 over 12. 12 is good, 13 is bad. Linen is the bad garment. Okay, and just to reiterate with those numbers, we've gone from day 7, 3-7. This is a point where we are, that's us, that's me. I'm naked, unashamed in the Garden of Eden. That represents myself, the hierarchy, my conscious, my subconscious. That's me. Adam and Eve is who I am as a child. First sin represents having life experiences. First judgment. I am now naming, qualifying, man on man, whatever, all of those things. I'm living life experiences. So that's what's going to replicate in here in the background, that we're products of that. But that, the 3, the 7 is not enough. They use those together in the sequence that if you analyze it enough, you see that it's something that you can do in your mind. You can do it in your head if you had it memorized. So it's all available right there. But that advance from 7 to 8 would be too common. So we're going to use 7 to grab up a 5, a 12, a 17, and then any of those, because the 7 to 8 advances, then the 10 to 11 is the same thing. That's what's happening here. So when we see that advancement like that right here from 12 to 13, that's what that is. It's the same thing as a jump from 7 to 8. They're just using different numbers to do it, to try and slide it around and make it not look visible. But once you connect them all in the first pool, then you got it. This group against that group. Now, if you recall, you probably don't. All right, the secret gospel of Mark. We get rid of that. Don't let that thing be around. The church doesn't want that around. Well, it showed up, and what it is, it's the one that describes Jesus staying overnight with the young boy who was thinly clad to help him remove his linen garment. So this right here helps me understand that even better. This is a spiritual teaching, not an external teaching. That didn't happen in real life. What this represents on the template is that you've got something that is an offspring within you that is very lightly covered with something that's bad. It's not a big issue. You resolve it. However, why don't we want this teaching to go out into the public? Because of its homoerotic nature. It falls right into these trappings. It's a right teaching, but it's not right for public consumption. All right, how about 7th? Exactly 20 times. So we got some cross-referencing going on now between numbers. Let me see if I can find another one. 7. Okay, eat 97. 90 and 7. Holy. I'm just grabbing random words now. 95, 90 and 5. Do you see that if you just go through here like this, it's going to be like, are you kidding me? Wow, this is mind-boggling. It's staggering. This is very, very deeply constructed. And I'm going to quick jump to the first book of the New Testament just to show you that that's not a fluke. It would take too much to get into all of it. It is maintained in the background. David, Abraham, Judas. Let's take a look at some names right here. I'm going to start with David. 17. David's good. Abraham. 7 times. That's good. Judas. What do you think? Doesn't sound good. 8. Hey, lo and behold, look at that. You see what they're doing? Let's do some cross-referencing. 3. 12 times. 7. 12 times. 12. 12 times. That's why I say the gay stuff. You know what? There's something going on here that isn't what you think. I would ultimately just reason it through myself in this way, that if that core structure is not only there, but if you can see it in other places, you go, okay, yeah, I see something here that is across the board. There's something that is at the core. I want to get at that. And then on the outside of that core, outside of the numbering system, is all on that core. There's a grid in there, but there's a pattern happening. It takes a long time for your mind to get how to see what is happening there. And that's only a repeat. Within the material itself, you don't even need to know that numbering system. If you, for example, what was the story about the man not allowing crippled at the altar to leave a gift? Jesus has an update. If you come to the altar to leave a gift and you remember that you have aught against your brother, set down your gift, then go resolve the ought first, then come back, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. When we interpret that, what that means is that if I'm at the altar giving a gift, why is that? It's because I want a better life. I'm asking for God's good graces. If I'm gifting God for something, or life is really good. I mean, maybe I'm just saying thank you. But in this case, if you're giving a gift at the altar and you remember you have aught against your brother, and aught against your brother in Jesus' vernacular, his verbiage shifts all over the place, but we have to put it in the mote in the eye. That's where the ought against your brother is contained. Things that we have unresolved from our past are going to continue to hurt, and they're going to affect our lives. So if you're at the altar looking for a better life, and you remember you've got something up here, don't even bother. Set the gift down, resolve that stuff, and then your Father who sees in secret, the life happens automatically. The changes happen. We're trying to invoke God's help. Meanwhile, we ourselves are dragging our own failures and our thinking at a deep level up here in our memories. So that's what's happening. Way, way earlier, what's happening? What is a crippled person? That is me who have not resolved things. Don't allow, giving a gift at the altar is not okay for me. So at the template level, they still have that teaching going on. But culturally, they're using analogous verbiage that today you have to look at and understand what it is. So I would say that whole thing, and what happens if you're on your wedding night, when you yourself are trying to wed your inner self and you realize you've got issues, destroy what is there. But it's held in a way that they would be living that way as well. Meanwhile, the template doesn't go there, but culturally it does. We have to go, my God, we are so far removed from there, or should be. The gay is the same thing. We're looking at those in the wrong way. They can make sense if we interpret them all in the same manner, using the same hierarchy. You know, there's a point for me where in all honesty, if I'm going to interpret something about like that person at the altar and make some kind of mental sense out of it, like I'm supposed to figure it out, and I come to that conclusion about, oh, it's about me and healing myself and life being better. Stop looking for a better life while you're ill, while you're mentally not okay, or you're deformed. They're using that in their culture because they're probably, stay away from the lepers. You don't want to get it yourself. They don't have the same kind of medical. It would have been a big deal. So they're utilizing things from their culture to carry an idea that we can extract from. But it also tells us how their life is in some ways. Okay, so if I do that, and then the same thing with the woman, it's like, man, they're probably doing that, but I can make some sense out of it by realizing what it means. Jesus has wedding chamber too. Everybody's got to be gone before it can happen. All of the guests need to be gone. The children of the bride. Whatever. Anyway, what this means is that from our inner self, whether or not we're married to ourself, which really means, are you constantly happy and okay? Or do you have inner mental conflict, or things come out, or things that happen that you regret and all of that, which would mean metaphorically that you are divorced from your inner self. So when you're going through and interpreting like this, it's like, okay, I am not a virgin, which means I'm carrying something that's kind of like you've got some issues. You cannot connect with your inner self in a happy marriage because there's something there. However, if there isn't anything there, go ahead. So they're writing laws in the culture in the same way that it's fitting the hierarchy that is, coming to those conclusions. Now, if I do the man on man, there's no reason whatsoever that I would think of interpreting that in any other way than all of the rest of the material, which would mean that if there is a metaphorical representation, that it's going to be what I said, because it fits the hierarchy that they use, and it fits the idea that it's two people in conflict creating something that is not going to be good for you. But it is so thick. It is very old, and it's something that is unfamiliar to us. So I think it's hard to get into. And again, it's not enough to have it memorized. You'd have to have how many times a word is said memorized. So this would have been something that they were so into that today we're not even close to it. No, I don't know anybody that knows the Bible as good as they would have. Yeah, you can just look and go, oh my gosh. I need to use the computer to see that. Can you see it? I said, I can demonstrate that. I don't have to make any claims. You can download a Bible and do that on your own computer at home. So that's and then keep going to all of the other books and keep looking for the same numbers, and they will keep appearing in the same way. All right. See you in the next video.